Horrific Network Entertainment. And we are live with Moderators. This is our 4th episode. I am joined by Charlie Williams and one half of the Higby Horror Haunt duo, Ashlei. We are 3/4 of your panel moderating team. This is going to be a fun episode because Charlie came on board the Sinister CreatureCon moderation team after he had been escorting people for, I would say, like 2 years. And I finally said, Charlie, do you want the opportunity to moderate? And you said yes. And there came a time when John and Ashlei joined the team. They were strictly our escort duo. And then, as we talked about a couple weeks ago, or a couple episodes ago, I should say, over the course of the pandemic, we put together the Sinister CyberCon and Halfway to Halloween virtual events. And Ashlei interviewed Dag Furch. And when we got back to going to live events, in-person events, there was no question in my mind that we needed a female presence on the moderation team. For a few Sinisters, Abby tried it out. And there's one thing that is hard to overcome, I think. And I do believe that it was Abby's biggest hindrance in moderation is stage fright. And Abby, to her own self-admittance, would ask the questions rapidly. Like just boom, 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 boom. And she would be done with her questions in like 10 minutes. And I'd be like, Abby, we got to fill, half an hour, 45 minutes. And, the next Sinister would go by and a little bit better. And then finally, Abby went the way of cosplay director and left a spot to fill. And I can remember the same thing when Ashlei got to her first live panel. She almost did the exact same thing. And I was
I know I totally did it. I totally know I did it.
But I remember, I think it was Ken Sago's, and we were outside in the courtyard going over your notes, and you were noticeably nervous, and I just looked at you and I said, dude, at the end of the day, you got to just like enjoy yourself. Like, because I remember there's one conversation I never had with Charlie. Charlie never said, I'm worried about disappointing you. And you on that Ken Sago's day said, I don't want to let you down. And I said, there's nothing you could do that's going to let me down. The only thing that's going to let me down is if you're having a horrible time. And you went out there and you did a good interview with Ken. You were way calmed down and everything. And I was proud of you then. And then fast forward 6 months to this panel, and I was like, holy shit, she's arrived. Like, now she understands what it is to be able to interview someone, to be able to moderate in this environment. And the panel that we're going to go over, as you saw in the opening credit, was Rachel True from Half Baked in the Craft. This is also one of the first people who came to Sinister CreatureCon where Ashlei DM'd me on the side and said, I want to interview this person.
Yeah.
What was it about her that got you like, I want to sit down next to her?
Like I said a couple episodes ago, the craft, I didn't really start out in horror, like as a diehard horror fanatic. It just wasn't. I've watched a few horror movies. I've been through that. But the craft was something that really resonated with me. And it was female empowerment and really just the whole storyline. It was just like living life, like being with these girls that are catty and how you overcome it and you go through these struggles with people and just that whole storyline and so many differences within the characters really just resonated with me. And I really always had a love for that movie. And so I really wanted to jump in on something that I really loved and had an interest in. I've had quite a few panels up to this point where I have interviewed people that I didn't even know like who they were. And it's great because like I said, I have an interest in learning people and deep diving and all of that. But when it's somebody that you love and it's something that you resonate with, I feel like you get more of a genuine self out of your panel as a moderator than, okay, I don't really know about this, but I'm going to try to pull it off because I've watched a movie and I've invested in some of the things that they've done and their history, and we're putting this panel on. The biggest thing is when you're invested, you want it to be right and you want to do it the right way and you want to get your own questions answered because you're a fan, but you also want to hear what they have to say to everybody else and get the feedback from everybody else. So kind of that volley when you have so much interest really just kind of helps carry the time through the interview and kind of makes it more of a natural conversation, at least for me. So it was just, I knew something that I would enjoy and I was really excited to try to jump in on this one.
Right on. Well, let's jump in. 2023, Rachel True.
Definitely a difference from me in this video till now, as we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Everybody's lost weight.
Dude, she was so cool. Like, we did this in June, and then in July, we went to Midsummer Scream, which is a convention my husband and I go to every year. And she had a table, and I was walking by, and she was like, "Hey," and I was like, "Hey," and she was like, "You're Ashlei. You're the one that interviewed me." And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Oh my God, it's so good to see you." Gave me the biggest hug, like cut her line, did the signing with me for her tarot book and it was a really cool interaction and to just kind of like have that moment and to share that and to get to share Walter with her and talk more. It was really cool. So I'm really excited that she's coming back because I felt like I built a little bit of a rapport with her and just had that experience. So, we talked about on a previous episode of takeaway, like your personal experiences and your takeaways, and being able to see her like a month later and her being able to be like, "Hey, what's going on?" And her be someone that I, was really interested in and had a connection with through a movie was really cool.
I got my first deck at 8. That's the shorter version. So
She was
no.
one of the
But
one of
when
those
that
kind of
script
guests
hit me in
too
my
that
thing, I was like, I think
you
I'm
could
gonna be
have thrown
prepared for
pretty much
these.
anything
I
at
feel like
her
I'm supposed,
and she would
and
have
I'm telling
been
that for a
fine.
purpose because
Like,
sometimes you're preparing for things and you don't
she
even
was
know,
down for
right?
whatever.
Like I
And
didn't know
there's
that
Yeah.
the script was gonna show
there's
up, but the
guests
fact that I've done
that
all that work put
take
me
a
in the
lot
exact
more
mindset to
work
get
to
that.
make sure
So
that
I'm always
they
like,
are
follow what you're
happy
intuitive
with how
heart
the
is letting
weekend
you
is
know, and just
going
like
or
work
how
with
the
your
day is
mind.
going.
But you
And
never know
Rachel
in
was one of
life,
those
the
ones that
mind that is your
she didn't need us
automatic
for anything.
pilot.
She was completely
Yeah,
content
exactly.
just hanging out at her table by herself.
Yeah. And that's how she was at Midsummer. Her biggest thing is that she really likes to interact with the fans and the people because she, in a sense, isn't moderated. She has freedom of speech to say what she wants. You'll hear a lot of that in this panel.
Specifically in the book.
But she gets to really be herself and she gets to just talk and she's so down to earth and she's so humble and she has such a great outlook. Um, and she's the other thing that I think is really cool is she's pretty private, like her private life is pretty private because of some of the things that she's experienced being in Hollywood, and she manages it pretty well.
Okay, so in the film The Craft, since that's what everyone knows.
She,
Your
Charlie,
whole
I don't know if
stance
you
is
remember,
to
but it was
portray
after
as
this
the best
panel
of friends.
the next morning as the guests were coming back in for the
I
night
know
before,
exactly what you're going to say.
the whole tarot card conversation
I
we
remember
had
it
with,
exactly.
and
Yeah,
like she,
yeah. It
talked.
actually was the best explanation of tarot cards I'd ever heard.
At my table. So
Yeah, and she talked to us about it for like 20 minutes.
Some people have kids, some don't.
And just
But
talked
Yeah,
about
she did.
how
of women.
But she made
like
so much, I mean, it was such a
So at the
good,
time of filming the craft, roles in
everybody
Hollywood
would
were
understand tarot cards if they had her
Do you feel like
explain
that
it
has changed for the
to
better
them.
today?
That's the way I felt.
Sure.
oh yeah,
You can't say it hasn't because
like,
there's
and she
plenty of
was
other, we
you
see
knew
a
she
lot
was a
more
real
people
one the
saying
second that
in
she was
America
like,
these
tarot
days.
cards are
I
not
would say
magic.
now that I'm a grown-up
They're not some
lady,
kind of
that's
thing
a
like
different
you
No,
get what you you
thing
get
that
what you
comes into
get out
play
of the
compared to
card.
being a 20-year-old
And the
and being
right.
like, oh, we
conversation
don't want
kind
any
of
black
stemmed
ice
from
cream
there,
here.
but
Like the
that
craft, it wasn't written for
I was
anyone
like,
brown. I
she
was just
And
like,
it
is
was a
horrible,
way to
terrible,
open up
extraordinary.
people to the
So
possibilities
I
in their
made that
lives
happen.
and
And I think,
to the
again,
things that
stuff
were
really
going on.
doesn't
And it
that
just made
comes into
perfect
play
sense.
when you're more of a
It was a
grown up. But
tool.
my thing is like, you can either be so upset and want
She does a really great job of breaking it down in her book too.
oh, okay, now I'm older and the roles are a little different, or I'll
Hmm.
write a book. I'll use my other talents. Is I'm always
I think the other thing that was really cool is
like, no. I'm like, really?
I didn't know that she was a part of a show that I had watched, and the show was called Harlem.
As being a
And a
much
lot of
black
people
person,
wouldn't
I feel
necessarily
like
recognize her
no, you can't read for this. No,
from the craft to the show
all the
because
time. All I ever
just
heard was
of body
no, it's too
differences and her character type and the type
so
of character that she
now I
plays
use
and how
this
her
with
character
my
is dressed and
friends to
perceived.
think like a 90s mixed black woman.
Excuse
Yeah.
me.
Just
Um,
don't take
but I
no.
brought it up in the panel,
So
and
recently you moved
she
to
talks about
and it was
the
And then show
empowerment
up
that
for events,
that
please
show
come.
brings and things like that. So it's really cool
it's
to
actually a great show.
kind of be shocked by someone that you're so intrigued by. Excuse me, you guys.
I actually watched the
it's
show.
wild to
Before you moved
see
it. I
how
wasn't even
comfortable
aware
you
that there was
are
a show before all
if
this
you go back and like
experience.
watch you interview,
And I love Amy
2 years
Poehler's how
before
progressive
this.
she is, and she's like all about her
Like
faith and
you're so much more comfortable in your own skin up there. That was why that was one of those things
and
where if
big
you see me,
leadership and all of this,
a
and you guys
gang
show.
watching or listening
How proud are you
at Sinister,
of Harlem and
part of my job is constantly, if I'm not up there moderating, I am checking in with our two main producers and seeing how their day is going, how the flow is going, how the guests are doing before I send our team to go, escort them to get ready for the panels. And so I try, pretty significantly to make sure I catch a good 70, 80% of each panel that, Charlie, Jay, or Ashley are moderating. But there are times where I got to step out and run. And I remember watching this panel in particular, and like not to beat a dead horse, but being so proud of just how at ease you looked as you were having this conversation. Like you were like, damn, she's killing it.
I think Jay and I have talked quite a bit about some of my tales. So when I'm really in my head about moderating and I'm really nervous, you can watch me and you'll see that I yawn. And it's because I stopped breathing. I cut the oxygen off from my head and I'm holding my breath, trying to process and trying to like tell myself to relax and all these things. And I yawn. So I'm constantly like, and it's just me. I do it all the time. I do it during podcasts. I do it, in any kind of an interview, job interviews, anything. It's just kind of my like, it's like my safety spot where I go in and I'm like, all right, stop breathing, process, take in this moment. And then I just forget to breathe. And then I have to yawn because I've cut off the oxygen in my brain. And that's just your body's way of resetting it. I do it a lot. And I noticed that in this one and my Billy Zane interview, I didn't do it as much because I was really comfortable. And I don't know where the light switched that came on or what. Even with Billy Zane, I was super nervous. But just to just to see my physical changes is kind of cool too, to see my growth.
It's interesting that she was just fanning herself. Because can we talk about this year?
Oh my God.
This was the day. Here's a behind the scenes
How
story
hot
for
it
you,
was.
where
The
in
devil
that
was with us that day. Let me tell you.
dude, that room had to be 110 degrees, easy.
If not hotter.
Now wait, didn't they turn on the heater instead of the air
Yes.
conditioning?
Yes.
Am I
The
remembering that
The
right?
next day we found that out. Yeah.
And it was 100 degrees outside anyway,
Yeah,
right?
it was
Wasn't it like 95,
unbearable.
100 degrees? Yeah, it was
And
hot.
yeah, that was one of those things, man, where that panel room, that's what I can, one thing about that panel room is that panel room gets hot if it's full of people, but you can walk to those
Yeah.
big vents in the floor and just open. I think we all do it. You just hold your shirt out above one of those big vents and Marilyn Monroe it and let the cold air, cool you off. And that day, there was no cool air coming out of those vents. And I was like, we were all like, what the hell is the issue? And then coming in the following morning,
Yeah.
and
Wait, backtrack a little bit. That evening, we got told by the staff at the Scottish Rite Center that the AC was broken in that part of the building. And so we were like, well, why wasn't this disclosed to, our producers of the show beforehand? Because we could have made modifications and done something to change. I mean, to the point that one of our producers ran out that night and went into Home Depot and bought a ton of fans just so we could cool the room down, to show up the next morning to find out that they actually had flipped the switch for the heater instead of turning on the air. And so we were literally cooking people and our guests in that room.
yeah, that was not a fun day.
Yeah, because normally I go and find a vent when in between like panels or whatever, and I sit on it because then it goes up my shirt. It's cooling off my butt. Like you're getting that full cool, because we're usually in jeans running around there, and it was so unbearably hot. And then just going and standing over the vent, thinking, "Oh, I'm going to get just a little bit of cool air," and you're just getting this piping hot air blowing through, was so miserable. I had to apologize to all of our guests so many times. Like, I'm so sorry, it's so hot in there today. They're having a problem at the venue. It's not anything we can control. Come to find out, it was something we could totally control, and nobody took the time to go look at it. But it's all part of the fun of moderating at a venue.
Yeah.
It's a live event. It's a very fluid,
Dude, I felt like a crawfish dropped in a crawfish boil. That's how hot it was.
And I'm sure you've been asked a million times, but how baked was everybody when filming Half Baked?
Yeah, that was bad. It was really bad.
Honestly, I know it seems like, oh,
I still
But you
think
know what?
Rachel
Last
looks.
October,
like whatever I do in my
I was just gonna say, I still think Rachel looks like Angela from Boy Meets World.
That's for off time, you know what
Oh.
I agree.
It's like, let's say even with which is legal now, we don't want to go.
What were you gonna say about last October, Charlie?
I was going to say last October, I froze my butt off in there. I don't know why,
And that's fine.
but if you notice for my panels, for most of them, I had my coat on.
And they're great
And I was
Huh.
comfortable. I had a jean jacket.
explore the script
And
at home and do my
I don't know,
homework
it's cold.
in my
Maybe it's an old man thing.
by whatever things.
I mean, I would much rather be cold than hot.
Or not.
No, that
Me
was
too.
Charlie, that was due to me, because I went to the staff before and I said, I need you to make sure that there's air flowing in this room so that we don't have what we had in June. And it gets really hot when guests are in
Okay.
here. So make it cold, because I would much rather people be cold than burning hot.
That's also the other
All right. Okay, well, so it wasn't an old man thing. I'm really grateful to hear you say that.
No, I mean, I was freezing too, because
I was freezing my ass off. I remember
Oh, yeah.
for Leslie Vernon panel, I'm actually, my teeth are starting to almost chatter, and I feel like my mouth is moving in a weird way, and it's hard to form the question. And
Halloween has
I hope
lights,
they
but what is
didn't
your
notice that, but I
favorite
actually
Halloween
felt like I was
costume in
going
that
to start
movie, and
shivering,
what is
So
you
your
know.
behind the
favorite part
And
of
then
scenes
it?
I,
story about that, Jay and I are
yeah,
watching your panel,
Any
and
instance
Jay
where
looks
you
over at me and he
had a hard
goes,
time with that
"Is
movie?
Charlie okay?" And I look at him and I go, "He's had a lot going on right now. And I don't know if this is just because he's exhausted or what, or if it's just been a really long week for him. But we visibly, because we know you so well, we saw your jaw." And I was like, "This is so crazy." I was like, "It feels like Charlie took like a bunch of shrooms and he's like low key tripping balls up there while he's doing an interview because you had these little twitches and these little jaw movements." And we were like,
yeah,
"Oh, Charlie's on a good one." But we knew it wasn't that,
I
but
was
we could
freezing.
tell.
I was freezing my ass off. I literally was freezing I was so uncomfortable. And that's the panel I didn't have my jacket on. That's the only one. And after that one, I had my jacket on for every panel because I thought, well, fuck this. I can't even get comfortable up here. Usually I'm pretty comfortable, and I am literally freezing.
I'm so sorry, Charlie. It was all my fault.
Ah, it's all right. Ashley, it turned out it was fine. And I enjoyed the panel, so. But I was cold.
I think the camaraderie was my favorite part of that movie. Also, it was just kind of fun to play someone who's much more uptight than I am.
Rachel is one of the ones that we talked about on the last episode with
I can't imagine
Brian, Bob, and Don,
Are you
them
talking about
being
Virgo?
in
That
a
seems so
you know
Virgo.
different
Sorry,
franchises, but being in a panel altogether,
What was it about the
circumstances
craft that you
providing
struggled with?
circumstances providing these unique
Like a
opportunities. I can tell
moment where
you
you're like,
without telling you
you felt like it
exactly,
was
but I can tell you that
you're
Rachel
having your
is going to
lines,
be
the
in a
emotions.
panel
honestly,
um,
I think the rehearsals were trickier
with
than the actual
with at least one
filming.
other
They were all
person
done. I done
that
was
will
California,
result
which was
in
technically a
a
studio movie, but the other girls had worked more, and
product
I'm like, they
panel
work more, and I'm like,
that
I
will
don't know.
be
So I
talked
was a
about
little like
for a
intimidated in the
long
rehearsal
time.
process, right? We're rehearsing
Yeah, I
Wow.
think
all my
I
lines,
think one of my favorite moments from this is I kind of hit her with a tough question. Um,
is she gonna say it that
and
way?
I felt like it
I'm
was
like, oh my
something
god, what am I gonna
that
do?
needed to be discussed because there's a lot going on in the entertainment world at this time and still going on to this day. And I was talking to her about, being a woman of color coming in and doing film. And she talks about it in her panel about, oh, well, you weren't invited to this convention to be on this panel because we didn't think that you fit, based on your color and your skin tone. And it's really crazy to see how in such a welcoming world that back in that time when the craft came out, that it was still a stigmata and that she had to go through that and how she's come out in the end over it. And I think that that's a really cool moment to share and to be able to express with a guest because that lets their true feelings about that come out. And it's not something that she's shy about. She talks about it on social media and stuff like that. But to really just get to have that with her and to get her to express that to our fans and our guests sitting in on the panels, watching our celebrities. I think it was a pivotal moment, especially since we had some people of color in the audience who really resonated with that and really wanted to touch on that. So I'm really glad that I kind of got to ease into a tough question like that and really give her the space to talk about it.
And acting is reacting, so you have to be.
It's
The
interesting
movie
too
is like,
that
oh my god,
how like
okay, it has a different feel than how I
out of
do
the
it
same
at home.
time
You
period
can't just do what you
you
rehearse
have
at
The
home.
Craft and then you have movies like The Crow,
Whatever the new
like
energy
all of those
is,
movies
that's
in that
really what
vein,
acting
like
is.
that,
So,
for lack of a
I'm
better
trying to,
term, like
what the hardest part
gothy
was that everyone else had
horror,
parents and I
like have
didn't.
really held up.
Me personally, I'm like,
Like
everyone got
they
parents,
still
and
have
Black Girl does it. We shot a
super
scene
strong cult
with my
followings
parents, and they cut them.
Yeah.
that don't seem like they're going anywhere anytime
If you're
soon.
not me, you're like, what do you mean? I
Yeah.
don't even know
Yeah.
Well, and to be in a film that has such big names attached to it as well. You
Oh,
know,
sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
you have two really big names of people that have done a whole bunch of stuff and that are really out there and they're standouts. And here you are and you got to fight this story. I mean, she touches on another point in this panel about how they don't ever talk about Rachel's parents in this. Like these girls just come from these messed up backgrounds, but they don't really touch on that. It's just how they're supposed to cope with it and how they become who they are.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of racism.
Hold on, I got to check on a kiddo.
And was
Sure.
it fun to live through? Why am I harping on it now? No other reason than to say we have come, per your first question, we have come further because that would just never happen today. So
And she's
She's
trying
a
to be
pretty
so.
animated person, Jim.
She is a.
Rachel,
She
I mean,
is.
she's, you know, she does a lot of gesturing
it
and
was amazing.
she, you know, she has no problem expressing herself.
Nothing to complain about.
Yeah,
It was
she's
just
one
like
of
when
those.
she was talking to us for about 20 minutes, you know.
Yeah, and she.
You know, go to my
She
Starbucks
kind of
store, and then
reminds
back
of
then,
like the
except
guys
for
from
that,
Clerks,
family
like
films
that personality
was
type.
shot on film
You know,
fest.
she's in. You know,
If
she was
Mom's
in
gonna take
Half
3
Baked,
hours to
Yeah.
watch this,
which
let me go to my
you know is
trailer and
it's
watch
its
it. Now
own
it's much quicker
you know
because of
cult
digital.
cult following
I actually really
for its own
appreciate
right.
their
But
languid,
like the
luxurious
guys,
pace
you know, the
that film
guys from
had. To
Clerks
be
when we
honest,
met the
as
three
somebody
of
who's grown
them,
up in ways
and
became super
you know
important.
to
That's
what
when
you
we
just
first
said,
started being
Charlie,
able to jam out
the
a
way that
movie
she's
theater
answering her
on the
questions
campus
and
to go.
making eye
And
contact,
she
but
was
the
so
big gestures and
excited
everything,
to
like
look, you know, didn't
all
have
those
to be
guys were
farsighted
Right.
and
very
everything.
animated,
She
just like
showed
her.
you.
And it's again movies from
Right.
that same
Right.
time
I
period.
love that. I
Yeah.
like to think that eventually there'll be more
Yeah. Yeah,
sweat.
that's
Oh,
true.
There'll be
I
more
feel so bad. She's like wiping the sweat off of
No,
her
yeah,
brow.
she's trying to be so dope about it, and she's like, fuck, it's hot in here.
Now, can you make it look good?
I think my other favorite thing is a lot of people didn't realize that she vaped during that panel.
Know that it's much
Did she
more
really?
visible.
Yeah, her vape was in her hand or in her lap. It's actually right there on the table next to her Starbucks cup the entire time.
Oh, that's funny.
So you have
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
how difficult do you find it to keep your personal life and public appearance separate in the world of social media nowadays?
Well, see, she just put it out there. She didn't have any inhibitions about being in front of a group or,
My friends have always said, like, you're
you know,
doing
letting
your
them
thing.
see
Never
who
like
she
the
really
judges,
is.
like you're
Well, and that I think that was the other thing that I really enjoyed about her that made me more comfortable going into my panel is,
you guys are
to be perfectly frank, when I went up and met her and introduced myself, she just very much gave this I don't give a fuck attitude, but in a very professional way. Like, I'm here, I'm me, and I'm going to do what I do, and I'm going to talk about what I talk about, and that's that. And if I don't want to talk about it, then I'll just change the subject or I'll pivot. Like, don't worry about it. And
Yeah.
she's so strong and independent, and then she's had to be that way her whole career that it's just who she is, and she has a really good finesse at being that person.
Right.
I will get litigious on
Yeah.
her ass so fast.
Yeah, it comes across for sure.
And things like that. But I think
Yeah,
it's important
I
not
don't
to
think
give
that
everything away
she
about
definitely.
oneself on social media,
If you
right?
didn't like what she had to say, she definitely did not
It's a facade.
care.
Like, not at
Right.
all. I think it's genuinely a thing. But I don't always talk about my relationships or things like
Man, what a
that.
difference
And I think that's
6 years makes as far as tablecloths and a background.
Yeah.
I know. I know.
I just
That is
wish that
what, yeah.
it was the same size as like the table so that you just have that full background. I still feel like it's kind of like I kind of want to put some curtains up, like some purple curtains up behind the backdrop off to the side to just kind of finish it. But I pay attention to detail and stuff like that, and those are my little OCD quirks that I see.
I remember when we got that backdrop, the biggest thing I could think that did, just from going back to Charlie when we started Sinister Creature Con and everybody put their shit in that corner. And then
right?
when
They
you would
say like
watch the
let's be
videotape, you
emotionally
could see like everybody's
regulated. Like
bags and
whoa,
stuff.
is that something
I'm
else
like
when someone is
the
missing
backdrop
something
gives us
because
the
Yeah.
you need
makes the
food
room just look
physically?
so much
That's
nicer
a whole head
with
trip.
all of our stuff behind that
But
backdrop.
yeah, I think I took
Yeah.
about 5 or 6 days
Right.
off, and now
Right.
I'm trying to post again. But
Yeah. It cleans up
it's
everything.
slow going. I think it's just tricky as a woman, as a female to realize the size wise. I'm more vulnerable, and then because of the craft, there are definitely people who are like, I want to do magic on you, and I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. I put up a picture of my throwback from like my first headshot, and somebody on
I
Instagram wrote,
remember
I can tell there's an X
I don't remember
attached to
what
you,
t-shirt I
but
was
I was like,
wearing,
that picture was from
but I
your
remember I had a
part like
flannel
1902.
over a
Pretty sure whoever
t-shirt
it is
going into
not
this
attached to you
day.
anymore. So
And then
there
it was
are
so hot
people
that I
who just
sweat
maybe go,
through
I
the
know how to
t-shirt, so I
read
couldn't take the flannel
based on
off
your posts. I
for
can see
fear
if
of
you're
people seeing the sweat stains on the
Oh no.
so
t-shirt.
eyes open, eyes wide
And
shut.
I remember Donna was like,
Wow.
"You're
So
Yeah.
that
crazy for
is
keeping that
something
flannel
that
on."
you
And I'm like, "I
wanted
can't
to
take it
look
off now."
into tarot, learning more of like the
The
magic
girl in the front row
behind
made me remember that.
that
She's
realm.
freaking fanning the hell out of herself with
Especially
her
as
Oh
someone who's starting to
cemeterium ticket or whatever she's got in her
be
hand
more
there.
intuitive to listen to themselves, like where would you
yeah.
turn to?
I would say like most people, not everyone, but most people have like that inner dialogue. Some people don't. I don't even understand that, but like the inner voice. And
We're
I
really
started when
lucky
I was
that
very
nobody
young. I
had some kind of
started paying
medical
attention to
emergency because
things,
it was that
and
hot.
I think I totally
Somebody had
struggled
a
Yeah.
with
heat
both though. Because once
stroke
I moved to
or
LA, I went to
faint
Whole
or,
Foods or Mrs. Gooch's, which it used to be, and
and I thought
I just grabbed
actually
a
the
super pre-made
guests did a
cushion.
good
I
job
hear
of,
my
they
intuition comes in
mentioned it,
different ways.
but they
I've definitely
didn't, it
developed
wasn't a
it
deal
with tarot
breaker
and other things, but
because I
basically
can
Right.
see
it's
somebody
the
with,
same gut intuition our
with a
ancestors
big
used to
ego
tell
coming
us
in
as
there and
innate.
going,
It's
I'm not
very,
going to
very
be in
cellularly
this
basic, right?
shithole
But
for an
also
hour,
your gut
Yeah.
intuition is your sixth sense.
because
Sometimes
it
we don't
was
think
hot.
about as much. But anyway, so I'm at Whole Foods and I hear this
And we
super
didn't
pre-made
really get
cushion,
any of
and
that.
that's how
Did
it kind of
you
comes
have
through.
anybody that really put up
Clairvoyant or
a
clair. When I went
stink
outside,
about
never
that? I
was
mean,
before.
of course you mentioned it
Clairaudience,
because we
and so
mentioned
I'll
it.
hear sort of
We
a rustling, and then I
apologized.
heard
I
something
remember
somebody saying,
apologizing to the
"Don't
people
taste
that,
the
came
samosas."
in.
And I took the first
Yeah,
samosa
Uh,
and
and
I
I
got
mean,
home and there was a
we
bug in
in
it.
between
So
every
that was
panel,
really me going, all right,
one of us was
I
on
need
the
to start listening
microphone
because it's that same
apologizing
thing.
for
Like some of your
whatever
ancestors like
the
don't go
cause
that way because
was.
there's the big cat
Yeah.
and that
So
would
we
jump on you
were
and eat you.
doing
Whatever
damage
yeah.
it is, I
control
don't
pretty
think it's
much
that mystical to be honest. I think it's
every
just
every chance we could
accessing
because we knew
something that we've kind of
how
buried.
everybody was
Like we
feeling.
watch a lot of
Which
TV
kudos to
and
this
Right.
lady in
things
the
that
front
bury
row
all
with the
that energy. So
flower in her hair. She
tips
hasn't
if you get a
fanned
chance,
herself
go
once.
stick your feet
I
in
feel like
that
she hasn't hardly
And it looks
moved.
like she has
I
a
know.
sweater
I
on
think
her.
people call her all the
Yeah,
weird names, but it's just what we did as a kid, right? You run
she is
around,
locked
Well,
in on
maybe
that
there was one
conversation.
death
craft.
then. Maybe she died.
Even in New York City, we
Uh-huh.
have patches of grass, and I like to go outside, take my shoes
I
off,
think
and
the
go
other
for
thing that is
strolls
great
in the
is
city.
that we
Also,
get such a
one
great
other thing
mix in the
about it,
panel
and I
rooms for
usually
as
will
far as
ask
guests
anyone
coming
if
to
you're
see the
at this,
panels.
every
Like
single one of your friends
you,
for advice.
as a
What
moderator,
is
you
your
look out into
zodiac
the audience
sign?
and you just see
Do you
so
know
many
anything
different
about that?
variations of
Unless you're
level
someone
of
who goes,
horror and
you know
fan
your zodiac,
and
you're probably trying to talk
where
to me
they're
about
at. And I
something.
think that's really cool
What's the
perspective
other
for us
way
as
of
well.
doing it, even though you know the right thing? Because again, I
Yeah.
do believe if you have to
Well,
ask
yeah.
someone,
I mean,
like,
it's
are you
like you
asking
talked
for
about
advice
with
or
you, where
asking
you're
to
not
listen, right? And it's like,
in the
okay, I'll
deep
let that
end
happen.
necessarily
But
of the
honestly,
fandom. This
I
is
think,
a
as I've grown
prime
up, I've
example of
found that
that bridging that
operates a
gap.
lot
As
of things,
she,
which is to
the
say,
craft is not
I'm the
exactly a deep
simplest
end
answer
horror film,
before I go, it's
but it's a
mystery, and I
middle of
go
the
like, I don't
it's a
know,
middle
I
of
don't know
the
that.
pool when
But
you start to
I
feel it
think,
slope down
I don't
into the
know, like
deep
I've
end.
always, as a
So
little kid,
you
been able
do,
to pick up on energy
that's one
where,
thing I will
as my
say for
parents
Tim
said, somebody's
and
back one thing might
Sinister
fuck
is
with
it
them.
brings
Which is not a great skill
guests
for a
from
child. You're like, I just
every
said one thing, and this adult is like, but
level of
that's my
fandom
intuitive sense is
of
picking up
science
on what is
fiction
going on
and
with them. So
horror,
I lean
where
into
you
that
may
now,
not
whether you're
necessarily like
a
the
CEO
Devil's
in a
Rejects,
boardroom, that
but
can only
you
help,
could
who
like the
intuitively
Adams
picks up what's
Family, and
happening.
there's someone
So I
from
think
the
that's
Adams
that way.
Family
And
here, or
everyone
you
has,
may not
I'm still going to
like
argue about
Friday
something,
the
so I'll leave you on that.
13th, but
I think
hey,
everyone has
guess
the
what? The
ability to choose
writer
a
of
point of
Repo
view.
the
And I want
Genetic
guests
Opera
that
is
can
year.
do.
So
It's
they
just our
cover, they do a
knowledge
really good
perhaps
job,
or
Sinister
something that you
does,
haven't thought about,
at
but it's there,
covering
but it takes
every
work.
base
Or they're not exposed to
of
it.
Right.
the
Or
type of
nothing that we
fan
have
that
is fine.
would be
You know,
buying
like
a
whatever
ticket to come
anyone wants to
anyway
do, but I
would
really like
find
your
something that appeals to them.
for helping me assess what is happening
I think
And
that
it's generational too, Jim, because you'll have somebody who's really old school, right? And then
yeah.
you'll have somebody from a
my visceral reaction is
from
going
a
to be completely
modern
different than
film.
your visceral reaction
Yeah,
because you have your life
absolutely.
experiences. So it's
I mean, the
your,
case in
it's
point,
kind
So
of
you look
you've
at,
got
so
you're
it's
appealing to a
interesting. It's
wide
interesting
age
that
range.
people on TikTok are like
well,
letting
you
strangers read their tarot cards.
look
I'm
at the
like,
lineup for
Although I
this.
think
like,
horror
who
more
are they
than
reading
probably
for?
any other.
Everyone? No one? So I'm always like, learn to read your own. It's really inexpensive and it's
I
super
think
More than
horror
any
more
other
than any
genre.
a
other
lot of us were
genre
not taught
has
before,
a long
so
shelf
our
life.
needs weren't met, right? So
Well,
all right,
I mean,
let's
look
get
at what we
back to
did
calming
today.
us down.
Okay, so
Our,
we're
peek
gonna
behind the
have one
curtain.
more
We're
question, and then
recording
we're
the
gonna
first
start
4
Yeah.
episodes on the same day.
if you guys
But
have
look at, I mean, look at what we,
we're gonna
we saw. We saw
pull with
um,
you and start asking some questions in
Friday the
just a
13th, Part 6, which is a mid 90s movie, to, Paranormal Activity,
Right.
to, the three guys, 2 out of the 3 guys that you talked to, Charlie, are all, early 90s. But then you had Brian right there next to him, and he's,
Oh, I saw 2 movies in
2010s.
Minnesota and
So,
Right.
Minneapolis, which is a
Exactly.
great city,
It's a
actually.
good
So
example.
I don't hate the city. What I hate are their million lakes and their mosquitoes that are the size of this table. Like I woke up with 3 bites on my face while filming, and so then I had to cheat away so the camera couldn't see it. So it's a great city though, but that's not my favorite place to film. Meanwhile, my friends are like, I just got back from filming in Prague, and I'm like, Albany, So I would like to go to more exotic places to film. Was that the question?
Yeah, your 2 worst and your 2 favorite.
Oh, and I love the first time I
Well,
went
it's a tribute to Rachel that she's willing to come back and after going through this sauna.
I was just like,
yeah.
Right?
my town, and not just because of the partying at all. I love an old medieval city, and those cities in Belgium and the Netherlands are like that. So Amsterdam's one of my favorite places. Also, Santorini.
Gang, I can tell you right now that Rachel is more than likely going to be part of her, or of a panel. But her craft co-star Feruza has
Right.
said that she would prefer not to, but she will be there making appearance and will be at her table all weekend. The reason I bring Feruza up is I almost wonder how much Rachel had to do with her coming as well.
Well, she talks about in our panel how her and Feruza are still really good friends and they talk on a daily basis. Same with Nev, and how they're constantly texting. They were texting right before the panel. She actually, before we even started, sat down and texted her and said, "I'm going to start my panel." Like, so I'm sure she had some play in that.
Different locations. And now for that last,
That's one thing I will say for Sinister, when we were talking about on another episode about the reception that the guests who come to Sinister have. Kane Hodder is one that stands out with, he wouldn't come to Sinister for the longest time because he had heard nothing good about Sacramento, and he left with nothing but a smile on his face. And he was told,
Yeah.
I mean, the look on your face, Charlie, like, someone down the line told him that he would not make any money at a convention in Sacramento. And so he had turned down Sacramento conventions for a while. And he came to Sinister and had a blast. And
Yeah.
hey, there's John.
There's John. There's my hubby
Hey, who's
with
that
the
guy?
microphone. I think the other really cool thing
Hey,
about
that's the
Kane,
panel.
yeah, I think the other really great thing that about Kane's panel and him being at Sinister was he literally spent time with every guest. And the most memorable thing for Kane with me is when he went into the green room and he had that one-on-one with that disabled fan and really got on his level and spent that time with him and made sure that he had time in his day for that. Like, he didn't care about making money off of signing autographs or anything else. He wanted to make sure that kid got his undivided attention. And we see that a lot with our
Have the
guests. They
experience.
do find a couple of people that they really put their time in and spend their time with. But for Kane to really just make that a special private moment was really cool and really fun to see. And also to see him get slapped around by Felissa as well.
You would think, well, maybe we should
Yeah.
include her because we could get another.
Yeah,
audience.
Felissa,
But
the
again, you know, I get their concern.
it's not even a
but
behind the
to this
scenes
day,
story
that's how
because
I
Felissa
depending
did
on
this
where I
wide
am
open in
by
front of a
myself,
crowd
I'm
of
like, hey,
people.
fellow black person, we're in a
She
show.
slapped
What's
Kane
going on?
across the face with a dildo.
So, you know, it's not unbased.
Were you in the room when she did that?
People might not see it, but you know, we're not a monolith.
I
And
do-
nobody likes
I
to
missed that.
skin.
So,
And
you know,
They
Felissa
were
I
sitting
had,
by
think
each
for
other
me
though, right?
that was
yeah,
some of
because
the other girls
they
in the
were,
movie were like, well, it's
I don't know
because
if they
we're
were buddies
famous. And
before,
I was like, yeah, well, how
but
do
they
you
were
think,
both in
you
that
make people
movie.
famous? You include them in the
Oh
press. If
man,
I'm not
Harrison
included in the
Smith
press,
directs
I
it.
have
What
no
is it
chance
called?
of becoming
Def
a superhero. You're
something.
only famous
Is it the
because
one
you do
that's
the
the
magazine too,
the
right?
You know,
Expendables
Science
of horror?
stuff.
yes,
So
Is that
to
the
this
yeah,
one?
day, I would still
yeah.
say that's
You know,
a
Mosley is in it.
Yeah,
Tony
what is
Todd
it?
is in it.
Something
everyone
House, is it?
understands.
Or
Death
If we're going to
House,
be
I
fair,
think.
yeah, I know which one
at
you
the
mean.
convention,
Death
And,
House, right.
all
Death
and so
53 girls were at this
they,
convention, and my
I
convention
don't know
was
if they had
pushing 80.
connected
She wants to go. She wants to
during
go.
They had a
that,
history.
And so I said, fine.
but or if they were buddies before that or whatever. But they
And I
were
don't know that that
definitely
was good or
buddies
bad, but I just
going
felt like
into
you're having the
Sinister.
other three, and I say I
And
want to go. I'll
Felissa
have the
had a
first three
dildo because
meetings
she
since
always has a dildo
since the
because of
premiere,
Sleepaway
and you're not
Camp.
interested in
Because
that.
she's the
And
mangled
Let
penis
me just say
expert
that
for
you
Joe
have
Bob.
money. Money
she's
always
Peter,
comes.
not
So if you're
Angela.
not interested in
And
money that's going to bring in, I
she
gotta
slapped
look at
Kane
what else
across
it
the
might
face with it.
be. You know, that's how I look at it. I'm not saying
Uh,
that was their motivation, but I'm saying this is how
was
it
that
turned out.
was that the
That's
year
one of
that
those
And then I had a couple
personal
of the other girls in the
moments
movie were like,
that
well, no,
we
I'm
were
there because
talking
of this, and
about.
she's there
You
I mean,
know,
how
I was
many
like,
people
stop
on
where
it.
this
else
earth can
could you see
say,
that?
Stop.
yeah, how many people on
Like,
this earth
I
can
dealt
say
with
they've been
that in the
slapped across
90s.
the face
You
with a dildo by
explaining to me
Felissa
why I
Rose?
shouldn't be upset. I'm not in the mood anymore.
I got to imagine that's a
I wanna
short
be
Right.
list.
old.
Maybe
was
I'll
that
ask her
the
to
You
do
know,
that
that's
to
what
me
I'm
when
talking
she's
about. You
there
keep
this
sitting around
next
talking
Charlie,
time.
I
about
triple
business.
dog
What
dare you
happens
to
in the
ask her to do
movie?
that to you.
I love the subject matter.
do
I
it?
I
So fun, and
I
You,
especially
you have to
Houston.
film
absolutely.
it.
And Cruz and
Do
Oh,
you
Lily,
think
are
she
you
has
kidding
one
me?
in her?
we did
Yeah.
help bring.
No,
I'll make sure
100%.
she has one, regardless. We'll make
It would,
sure that this happens.
And early 90s.
it would
I
be
Just coming out of satanic
it would be one of
panic,
my
you know,
proudest
where
moments, Jim.
you'd have to
holy
I
raise
could
shit.
die
money
a
to get
happy
your
man.
girls
Charlie, I
in,
might
and
just go
everybody
out
was
and buy
cheering for
one so that she
Christine.
can slap you with it and
Pathetic,
sign it, and
right?
then you can
So
keep it.
coming out of that, we showed a different side because we also weren't.
I mean, how
Oh,
legendary
no,
would
no,
that be?
no. Let's not go that
Right?
far,
For
Ashley.
attractive women, and I also think the
When
We're
this
gonna make
advantage
it
happens,
Let's not go
of
that
opening
far.
when this
really,
happens,
really big
Charlie,
and double
a
ended.
big matchup, you know, and male sexuality.
when this
Oh
happens,
God.
Charlie,
You hit it
we expect it
in
to
to
be on
realize
that
like
wall
what you
right
can
next to that
do
Frankenstein
with just
poster.
a look or a thing. You know, that's the analogy
Oh
to
my
the movie
God.
craft, is how overwhelming it is when all of
Hey,
I,
these
we
I
have other great
I'm
Charlie moments,
speechless.
and this will just add to it.
Oh, we're gonna go ahead.
This could
Can't you just take
easily.
a movie? Can't you just take a video?
No, why? You need a memorabilia. It's something that Xander would be so proud to
I need
take on as a
I
collectible
need the
later on.
physical evidence. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah.
Jimmy, was that the same year that Crone was with us?
Oh, I mean, us actors think that
Kane
all the
Hodder
time,
year.
by
Yep.
the way.
Yeah.
There are
Because
so many
Crone,
people.
I'll
Like,
never
I
forget
would
the
love
look
to
on
work
Crone's
with
face.
Quentin Tarantino. I don't know if
I don't know
he's
what
seen
Kane
Barbie,
asked
he's
him
doing that.
for
But a lot of my
originally,
friends have worked
but
with
A
him.
sandwich.
He's a tough
or was it
director.
okay?
I'm not
So
saying
It was
he's
started with
not,
a
but I watch
sandwich.
his films.
but
So
I'll never
that's the
forget
one I'd still love to
Justin
work with, like a Scorsese.
standing
You know,
behind
all
Kane
those people.
Hodder with his
I was at Vanity
badge.
Fair Oscar dinner
Like,
party and talked to George Lucas all night, and I was like,
It was like a security guard.
well, but he had his chest out.
Too. If you're ever at a thing,
It was like he was
Like
showing
his
off a
personal
gold medal.
bodyguard or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about
It was like his personal
Yeah.
assistant for the whole rest of the day after
And
that.
Right? So we just talked about
And I just remember
and
Crone going,
he was
I
very
don't
protective.
know. Yeah, he's like, I don't know if I leave or if I just stand here, but he told me to be here and he told me to wait, so I'm waiting. This is what I'm doing. It was such a great moment for our panel team.
Like, if you ever see someone, just approach them.
I remember he came up to me at one point and he was like,
important. The reason
are you
everybody
okay?
loves
Do
my
you need me to
cable
do
movies, one of
anything?
the
Or can I
reasons
just go stand behind
movies are
Kane
so
Hodder? I'm like, just go
insane, it
stand
really
behind
is
Kane
the
Hodder, man.
audience, right?
You're
Like,
Go
fine.
go have your moment, bud. Live your best life.
you're the reason all these movies are
Yep.
alive, and the posters are still out there. They're still
Yep.
being shown. So you're an equal part of it, is what I'm trying to say.
I want to
I
say
digress a
Justin
little
was the
because
reason why
Okay, another question.
I got wind of Felissa whipping out the dildo.
And then we have another one in the back again.
So I
Oh,
think
really?
yeah, I think he was texting saying, "Hey, Felissa Rose is digging out a dildo."
Hey, so I'm Craig from
And
San
by the
Antonio.
time I got out of the panel room and
Well, I
over
do.
there,
And I
she
have
was
two
slapping
questions.
Kane with it.
One
Yeah.
is the craft legacy.
Well, I
know
do
that
remember with
I don't know her. Nice gown.
John and I were
would say
escorting
we saw the
Felissa,
ending credits and
and
seeing
she
that
was
there was
with
no original cast members being in
her
the legacy
not her
movie.
manager,
And I wanted
but
to know,
who's
do you think
the
they're gonna make a
booking
Her
follow-up
agent,
agent.
when you
her
go
eight,
there?
I
booking agent
don't know.
for
I
the
honestly
convention,
don't know. We had a lot of
Samantha,
meetings. Like my
Mhm.
story on that one is we had a
and
lot of meetings about that movie,
they had to stop
they
and
were
use
like,
the
we don't need
restroom, and they're
that.
in there
So
just,
like I
I don't
said
know
on the
what they were
panel,
doing
it's
in
not gonna
there,
work
but it
out.
was, a lot of giggling and everything like
And
that.
my other
So
question for her
Felissa
is,
comes out,
also I'm a Virgo, so that was
and I've
funny.
told this story before, and she looks at
They
me
are
and
the
goes,
hardest
"How do you
working
feel
sign,
about
though.
boobs?"
They work hard.
And John was there
Definitely,
with me, and I
definitely
said, "Well,
appreciate you
John and I are in
to all
favor of
the
them."
women who played
So,
Ashlei.
and then we walked
With
them
that being
down to
said,
the panel room.
I'm also a fan of like vampire
Felissa is one of
movies,
those
so
ones
really
that
appreciate that you open those doors. But I also want to say, are you a
you can
fan
pretty
of anyone
much
that's nerdy?
say anything to, and she's gonna smile at you, and
Oh, you know what? Like
her
honestly, I used to be a bigger
behavior is
Yeah,
fan
I
of
think
going
she's
to
nerdy
got
be
a
movies.
infectious.
great
Super
personality too.
saturated at this
She
point,
enjoys
and
what she does,
so
that's
are
for
you,
sure.
right? Like it's been 10 years. I get it. You're superheroes. I actually would love. I would really love a small movie with a story and a plot at this point and a emotion-driven thing. Like that's just me, though. I know a lot of you really love the superhero stuff, and so do I. But I think I'm just super saturated with it all. But nerdy stuff, I am a nerd. Like I'm literally at home teaching myself to play keyboard.
Little
So
did
that
we
I
know
can
that the
understand my
MCU
bass
was going to
guitar
kind of take a
better
dive after
while
this
learning,
convention.
I just got
Right?
into photography. Like I like that I can entertain myself.
You
The
can
what?
see that you can tell that starting to get nervous because my fingers are clicking on the table.
But I don't know. I know that's not the nerdy answer you want. I mean,
Like
I
it's
have
like
that
coming
time
close
when
to a
it's
close of the panel.
which
And I'm like, are we gonna finish on time? Okay.
Yeah.
Like my
Here's the
hands
nice thing
are
about
fidgety.
nerdy. I love them.
Here I am
I
throwing all
love
my
them
tails
so
out there.
much.
That's one thing I will say is the most awkward thing. I always feel so freaking awkward when I'm standing on the side of the room trying to get the attention to give you guys the 5 minute countdown
Yeah.
because, because depending
Really?
on
The
the
question was, did I have
yeah
I
guidance
never
because
counterings?
picked up on that.
Girl, no.
Oh, it's
because
so awkward, Jim or Charlie.
I
It's
never
so
see the
awkward
body
to like
double when she's going
try to
down the
catch your
block. It's just
eye and to
literally
get
every
your
10 seconds
attention,
I
but
say,
not
wow.
distract the
I'm
guest
scared to
or
walk
all the people in
out
the panel room and be
because
like, you got
that's
5 minutes left. Like
and
you don't want to do a
Margot asked
disservice
me,
to
Emma was
the
like, oh,
Yeah.
I
celebrity
thought it was
guest
gonna
and be
fall
like, you
into
need to
you.
shut up in 5 minutes. Like,
I would say the interesting thing to the 3 people who are in the audience was
yeah.
that listen, the girl who played my stunt diver, and she seemed really nice, but her whole thing was they had to put dark makeup on me to match you. They had to put and I was like, yeah, because you're playing me. And she was like, well, it's darker than I am, and I was like, yeah, because it's not about you. So she was a sweet girl, but I got kind of like, it's not about you after a while, because I was like, I don't care that you're 2 shades darker or lighter. Like, I could go out in the sun right now and I'm 5 shades darker. So she seemed more hung up on color. That's why I said it was for the 3 people. Anyway, and you. Yeah. So,
Wow.
I think when it comes to that, I don't know, I like to live in the moment, each moment, everything. Did you have a second part to that?
No, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
I've always wondered because you can't tell sometimes if
Rachel
and I watch them
coming back this time, I
No, listen, at that time,
look forward
they
to
said they
seeing
searched water to find a brown diver.
if she has her book. I would definitely get her to get a, or I would definitely get her book this
And
time
actually,
around.
my character had another
I want to say by the time we went, Charlie, and
I'm
talked to her,
sure
I think she
she'll
was
have it.
sold.
And I kind of
When
wish they
I
did
was
that,
gonna say
because
when we
then,
went and talked
again,
to
when you
her,
think about what is
I think
the
she was already
foundation?
sold out of them. So
She's burnt. She's
Was she
That'd be-
really?
Yeah, she was, because I went back at the end of the show to go get one from her and she didn't have any more. And that's why I was able to pick one up from her and get one from her at Midsummer, because by the
Oh,
time
cool.
it was done, she was out of them. And I think the biggest draw is that it's a set of tarot cards with a book, and it's
nice.
not, hey, this is how you have to read tarot. This is her little bits and stories of her experience with the cards and things like that. And then it gets into, this is what this card means, and this is what, these are the broad spectrums and how you can read this card and what this card is trying to tell you. But she gives you a personal reference, which I think is really cool as well.
Still a little nebulous in the original movie.
Yeah.
All right, so we have time for one more question.
She had her hand up. Yeah.
Do you want the mic?
I'm good.
Okay.
But that kind of actually leads me into my question, which I wanted to ask about your time working.
Ashley and John with their creepy queen and creepy king shirts.
Which little side note here, those shirts are actually from a panel guest from one of my very first panel, Melissa LaRue, when I did the women's panel during Halfway to Halloween. That's actually her shirt, her brand,
Oh,
that she had shirts made.
really?
And John and I,
Oh.
yeah, and she was selling them and I bought them online. I talk to her all the time. I still talk with her on a daily basis almost, if not a couple of times a week, but those are her shirts. And so, I bought one. I bought one for me and I bought one for John. And so we rock her brand and we run around wearing them.
That I'm in based off it. But the documentary itself is very eye-opening.
Cool.
Melissa is super dope.
Yeah. She just moved from Vegas to Seattle.
Then you don't really understand
Wow.
what the
Yeah.
analogy of the monster is, right?
She's super rad.
An analogy for the presence of blackness in your town, or the one black person who just moved in and they are represented maybe by the creature from the Black Lagoon, and that is so go watch a documentary, because I can't break it, and we got to wrap this up, right? And I can't break it down in such short time. But it doesn't matter if you're not black, right? Because you could be Swedish and have the same kind of things that were layered on your people. It's not specific, but you will learn about that in this movie. And I can't say enough good things about that documentary. And basically, up until the time I was in the craft, like, again, if you were in a horror movie, if I was in anything, my number one line was, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Because this is not about me. Like, I am not the main.
She's one of those guests that
Are you okay? So just sort
you can ask a question and she has an answer and she's long-winded and she can talk about it, but she also transitions herself from that
Yeah.
into something else, and it helps carry your panel across. So super grateful for that, because I had a couple of pages of notes of questions for her, but I didn't need all of it because of how the conversation flowed with her and I and the other guests in the panel room. So she's one of those great, panel guests that you almost don't need to moderate them, but they give you the space to moderate them because they know that that's what it's there for. You get some guests that just go, or you get some guests that don't want moderators and they run their own panel. Or you get guests that give you one-liners and you're like, well, damn, I asked you 12 questions and we're 15 minutes in. So it's really cool to you never know what you're going to get until you sit down and have that conversation with them.
Absolutely, man. And I cannot wait to see what kind of conversations transpire at Sinister Creature Con June, just in a couple of days, the 22nd, 23rd of this month. Make sure you go to sinistercreaturecon.com, get your tickets. In the show notes, you will find a link to sinistercreaturecon.com. You will find a link to the panel that we just watched and talked to. So you can go back and watch it if you have not yet. And you will find a link to all of our socials as well. Higby Horror Hunt coming up. There's John. And we will be there in Sacramento with you guys very shortly. It's going to be a
John,
wild
put some
time.
pants on.
Or don't put pants on. Nobody put pants on at Sinister Creature Con, I'll tell you that much. So for Ashlei,
Not if it's as hot as it was last year. No.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So for Ashlei, John, Charlie, and Jay, thank you for watching this episode of Moderating Moderators. Stay tuned for more. The next set of these is going to be the Dream Come True, the Dream Come True set. I'm talking my Star Wars panel, Ashlei's Jason Mewes experience, Charlie's Joe Bob Briggs experience.
Oh, and the stories. Oh, the stories.
So stay tuned for all of that. The next round of these recordings. But until then, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay spooky, everybody.